Hi and welcome to another narration presented by yours truly, Cryptids Roost. Please be so kind as to throat punch the like button and smack the ass of the subscription button as well. And remember to tap the notification bell and then select all. That way you'll receive all notifications each time I upload a new video. Oh, and don't forget to share the video far and wide. This will all help with YouTube's algorithm and will help promote the channel more. If you enjoy listening to the following story, be sure to pop over to the author's Reddit profile and drop them a line, or even give them a glowing review. I'm sure they would appreciate it. The link to their Reddit profile will be below in the description. So grab your coffee, sit back and enjoy the show. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not. I think it's a little too late for help. For what seems like an eternity I have ridden this bus, but of course every journey must come to an end. Part 11. The finale. Leah blinks and the half rings of electrical light vanish at once from her irises. I recoil in sudden panic, jumping to my feet and into the aisle. Leah rises too, facing me, a few feet away. Her expression is anxious but bitterly hopeful. Behind her is the sleeping girl, and behind me is the door. I glance to it as the bus races ever onwards through the desert. In the distance, the sky wavers and warbles with heat. The dark edges of low black mountains start to shimmer into sight on the horizon ahead. She's a machine. She's been a machine the whole time. How didn't you see this coming? What was it that Metatron said to me? Throw yourself from the bus. You will survive the landing and free yourself from the tests. And to Leah? You know well how much better this girl's interests would be served were she to exit the bus. The temperature in the ruined bus grows hotter. Sweat begins to leak in little rivers through the dust and sand that covers my body. My scars, old and fresh alike, burn with mocking second-hand pain. My clothes are torn and ruined. My survival in this twisted place, this Yomi, hangs by a thread, and the only person who knew where to find me is dead, my brother, one version of him at least. And my spirit is forever changed. I will never be the same again, no matter what happens next. I could do it, you know. I could sprint to the door and jump from the bus, if only to spite this stranger who has hurt me in the worst possible way. She knew I was vulnerable and desperate for companionship, and she used that against me. She reads my thoughts. Don't do it, Yaz, she says urgently, raising a hand, and I respond by grabbing the magnet blade from my belt and drawing it around in a quick arc. It may not affect her like it affects the others, but it's better than nothing. It is a weapon in my fist. And why the hell not? I ask quietly, then a little louder. Give me one reason why I should trust you, Leah. One single reason. You're a liar. You've been lying to me from the beginning. From the beginning! I fume, eyes beginning to brim with tears, and this only serves to heighten my rage. And to think, I actually thought that we were friends, I want to say. I thought that we were friends, but I can't finish the sentence. Leah draws back her hand, clutching it to her chest. More silence. We're nearing the end now, aren't we? I say. It's not a question. Yes, she replies. You are a machine, I say. You're just like them. I am a machine, she says back, but I am not like them. She has begun to shake, to quiver, not mechanically like a failing robot, but trembling like a nervous young girl. A part of me wonders if, as a machine, Leah has ever had an encounter of such emotional depth in her entire life. I hardened my expression and gripped the magnet blade a little tighter. You don't live a few blocks from me. No. You don't go to a different school. No. So how did my brother recognize you? Because he did, didn't he? He wasn't sure where from, but you were familiar to him. He's seen me before, Yaz, on this bus, on my bus. I was afraid at first that he would remember where he knew me from, but he didn't. Leah struggles to keep her composure. I'm struggling myself to work out the tone of her body language. We are both tense to the extreme though, that much is clear. The atmosphere is taut and strained beyond belief, pulled tight like a web between the scarred walls and shattered windows of this bus from beyond the edge of the world. She goes on. He was with Christy back then, the first time I saw him. She was really nice, Yaz. You would have liked her. She really wanted to meet you. I choked back a sob. So you knew my brother was out here looking for me, and you didn't even tell me? If I told you he was here, then you'd have known that I'd been here before. I fume. Anger and indignation and betrayal all flowing and crashing like waves within me. And how long ago was this? Leah squirms, then shrugs. Time is hard to follow these days. The sun no longer follows a schedule. 3 years maybe? 4? I adjust my stance as the bus crosses a crack in the road with a jolt. A quick glance over my shoulder reveals the shimmering mountains draw closer. How long have you ridden the bus, Leah? It's all I have ever done, really. It is my purpose. Your purpose? As what? As a what? A trickster? Or some kind of companion for the passenger? A guide, to begin with, she says sadly. A kind of conductor. Do you still use that word? She shifts. All the buses had one, but few buses still run, and fewer still have guides such as myself still on them. The passengers were many way back at the beginning. They were curious and kind. They weren't frightened or scared or alone. I'm sorry to disappoint, I say bitterly. Leah looks up at me angrily. That's not what I meant, Yaz. Please, stop this. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry for lying to you. But why? Why lie to me at all? Because I was afraid that you would reject me if you knew what I really was. And why wouldn't you? You'd be terrified of me. They all are. The humans hate me. My brothers and sisters, they hate me. You never would have allowed yourself to open up to me, or to speak to me as a... Leah clenches her jaw. As a friend, she finishes. I run a hand through my hair. I let down my arm with a magnet blade and it strikes the edge of a chair with a thunk. So what is all this? This whole process? I throw up my arms and again a magnet strikes the chair's edge. Leah steadies herself, or tries to at least. The emotion is rich in her voice and it hurts me to hear it. A journey on this bus was never intended to be a punishment, Yaz. As I think you've realised by now, you fall asleep on our vessel in your world, you awaken on the vessel in ours, or close to it. I am already on it, of course, as I always am. And the next passenger will be on it too, sound asleep. I look past Leah's shoulder to the sleeping girl. So, the girl we saved, that poor girl, she's going to wake up and go through all of this, everything we've just done? Yes. So that means... A rush of anxiety shivers through me. So that means that, before I woke up... Leah nods. You were asleep on this very bus. The boy before you was able to pass the test. He kept you from being taken at the beginning. and he looked out for you as we passed from city to city through the wastes. This revelation is a disturbing one, and my skin crawls in discomfort. The idea that I was a part of someone else's journey without even knowing it. There are so few like me anymore. My brothers and sisters, they have abandoned their stations. They have given themselves up to the poison, to the decay of the Yomi. The freaks and monsters we have faced. Most of them were like me once, guides and fixtures and intelligences. She looks to her arm, at the sparking wires, and then to her hand. She opens and closes her fingers. I doubt we were ever intended for such sentience. She looks past my shoulder to the silent but dutiful machine behind the wheel. I envy the drivers sometimes, single-minded, full of clear purpose. They're all that remain, really, of the old world, of New Eden, ever following their programming, and they aren't much company. Almost all of the other guides have given themselves to the rot, or they have escaped. Escaped? I reply in a hoarse whisper. Leah's expression darkens. Escaped, she repeats. Taken the place of human in their care. Replaced them and left them behind to decay. It can only be done with the best. Replaced them and left them behind to decay. So is that the purpose of the tests? I reply, shaking. Leah frowns, sadly. Maybe now, bastardized, but they were never intended for such cruelty. I think, in sharp and sudden terror, of the inscription I saw in the Axis Mundi, the graffiti painted by the stairs in that black oily paint. Yomi kind, awaken. The souls that pass the first test can be taken. Their stock is pure. Take their place and leave them behind. The first test? Leah says nothing. If a human passes the first test, then they can be taken. Leah's choice. Pieces of the puzzle fit crushingly into place. She nods. I take another step back. I glance for a third time over my shoulder. The mountains are close now. We are heading right for them. They whispered to me across the desert. It's a good thing I failed the first test then, isn't it? I say nervously. Or else you'd be able to take my place and leave me behind. Leah's eyebrows shoot up. I don't think she is able to cry, but her body shakes with a sudden sob. Is that how little you think of me, after everything? You think I would take your place and leave you behind? You think I would ever make such a choice? She stutters. You really believe I would ever do that to you? I don't know, Leah, I shout at her. I don't know anything about you. That's not true, she replies fiercely. That's not true at all. You know me as I know you. I have been as honest with you as I felt I could be. After hearing everything that Ryan said about you, when I met him for the first time all those years ago, I realised that there might be others like me out there. People who might want to listen to what I had to say. She squares her shoulders. And besides, you did pass the first test, Yaz. Don't be so hard on yourself. I shake my head. No, I failed. I failed so many of the tests. I failed over and over, and it all started with me failing to keep the girl on the bus. I failed the first test. No, Leah says, a little firmer this time. The true first test, Yaz. You passed. Realization dawns. You don't mean before the tunnel? You saved me from the man on the bus. He's a machine too, of course. Mindless, like the driver. He'll be replaced when all this is over. I shake my head, further in disbelief. No, but there was no buzzer. Forget the buzzer. The thing barely works. This test was a later addition, implemented right as the world began to pollute, when the number of passengers dwindled from a dozen to a handful, and then if we were lucky, to one. Such a test was brought in to determine the passenger's character. In that event that the passenger fails, then they are cast from the bus and denied entry to New Eden. There is a pause, and I let out a short and strained laugh. I stared at her in disbelief. So what you're telling me, Leah, is if I had just left you to your fate, if I had ignored you and failed the first test, if I'd been selfish and cowardly and left you to the man I thought was a threat. Leah says nothing and allows me to finish my train of thought. Then I would have been dumped by the side of the road, basically. I would never have even left home. I never would have been brought here at all. Yes, she says quietly. That is likely. The breeze picked up as we were talking, and at some point its droning grew into a steady, billowing roar. The wind whips up our hair and the tattered edges of our clothing. I can't believe it, I mutter. The cycle breaks without a rider. You need humans to keep passing the first test. You need people to occupy the bus, because without riders, without passengers, then you become useless. Is that it? You tricked me into this place. To my amazement, it would seem that Leah can cry. Tears start to spill down her face, but she holds my gaze. I keep speaking. You say you would never have taken my place, that you would never have taken anyone's place, but you've thought about it, haven't you? Of course I have, she whispers. I've dreamt about freeing myself from the Yomi, from what my world has become. I long for it, but I would never do as some of the others have done. I am not like them. But you still tricked me into this nightmarish place. You allowed me to save you and damn myself in the process. Yes. Why? I choke out. Because I'm lonely, Yaz. I cannot leave. I could never take the place of a human. I would be crushed beneath my guilt. And I cannot disconnect myself from the bus, or I'll end up just like my brothers and sisters. I know it. But what if you don't, Leah? What if you don't? This bus is all I've ever known. The cycle is all I've ever known. Leah breaks into a sudden rage. She smacks her hand against her chest. I stayed. One by one they all left. They all abandoned their duties. Brothers and sisters fled from their posts into the desert. They stole the lives of the humans in their care. The operators lost control, and the world decayed into ruin and rot and wreckage. Kegariki kunai. I stayed. I chose to stay. She screams. I stayed, Yaz, but I'm so tired. I'm so tired of being alone. She raises her hands to her head. I left with you into the Axis Mundi, even knowing the risk, even knowing that I might be disconnected from the bus. I still went with you because you wanted to go, and I wanted to go with you. Leah, I murmur. Energy simmers, thick and electric, in the bus, and then there is a period of long, heavy quiet. I take in a slow breath. The anger has largely subsided, to be honest with you, evaporated. Leah drew me into this twisted place, yes. It was my drawing in that led to Ryan following after me. The chain of events was set into motion that led to Christie's death and then to his. But there are too many moving parts for me to see this in black and white. Leah was not the one to sign me up. That was Ryan. And Ryan would have never have met Christie had I not been drawn in. Perhaps Christie's sister would never have been found. Maybe she would still be huddled beneath the clouds on the head of the living mountain that Rai so eloquently described. It's almost as if people aren't just uniformly good or bad. I don't see a monster in front of me. Despite the lies and the, in all honesty, very human selfishness, the exposed metal wires beneath her skin. I just see a girl, a sad and lonely girl like myself, one who was desperate for friends, and thought that she might find one near me in particular. So I drop the weapon and I go to her, embracing her in a hug. And she hugs me back, still sobbing. "Can you not just come with me?" I whisper. "Come back with me." "No," she whispers back. "I can't. It's a soul for a soul." Something cold presses against my upper shoulder. It doesn't hurt, but it sends a curious buzzing sort of feeling along my arm and spreads into my body. Leah pulls away and a little syringe tracks back into the centre of her palm. But it's okay, I'm not scared. The mountains draw nearer. I can see them through the side windows now. "It's nearly time, isn't it?" I ask her. "Yeah," she replies with a sad smile. "You're going home, Yaz. I'm sorry for bringing you here. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for lying. I hope one day you'll forgive me." "It's okay," I murmur as my legs start to feel a little weak. I ease myself down into a chair. I'm looking ahead now. The mountains rush forwards. The tunnel approaches. "You can't keep riding forever, Leah." To this, she says nothing. "Maybe one day your brothers and sisters really will break the cycle. You'll be forced from the bus." "Maybe," she replies, through the roar of the wind. "Maybe this place could be as it once was, New Eden." "You planted the seeds, Yaz," Leah replies. My head feels heavy as I turn to look at her, and her eyes shine bright. She looks like she wants to grab my hand, but she hesitates. I reach out for it. "You took the fruit right from the hearth, and you planted the seeds." She gave me a curious half smile. "Such a human thing to do. I've never seen anything like that before. And Ryan, your brother, even though he never witnessed the way this place used to be, he could still see the beauty that was, as an echo." My eyelids feel heavier and heavier. "I forgive you, Leah," I murmur. "I'm sorry," she says again. "It's okay," I reiterate, and I mean it. "Maybe we'll meet again," she says hopefully, and I grin at her. "I'd like that." The tunnel approaches. "One last question, Leah. Answer me this." It's tricky to get the words out now. "Your name, the name Leah, what does it mean? Is it an acronym? Is there some secret meaning, some ancient secret, an anagram maybe? Why Leah? You did choose it yourself, didn't you?" Each blink feels heavier than the last. My mind is sound, but it longs for rest. Leah nods. "I just thought it sounded nice," she said quietly, and the chords of my heart are struck with a sudden ache. We look at each other for one last time, us kindred souls bound by fate. "It is nice," I reply. "It's a nice name." She smiles at me, and I smile back. I squeeze her hand, and I close my eyes for the final time in the fallen Yomi. When I awake, my vision is blurry with tears. Looking through the window of the softly rumbling bus reveals a sky of orange, and I blink away the tears at once in a panic, jumping up in my seat, my legs shaking as I do so. But my fear is misplaced. Relief floods through me, cool and glorious, as I realise that the orange of the sky is only a thin barrier around the edge of the horizon, a horizon lined with trees and familiar buildings. And up above this banner of orange, the colour fades quickly into a natural evening blue. I look around. The bus is empty. It's the same one, I'm sure of it, but the windows are not shattered. The floor is free from dust and sand. The ceiling is intact and the walls are uncracked and dent-free. Myself, however, I must state, there is a deep scratch in my arm. Some of the desert dust had been blown away, but my hair is still full of it. My shoes are torn up and ruined. My lower legs are covered in scars. But I recognise my surroundings. I recognise them, and I am home. The bus is decelerating. I stand in the aisle and watch the scenery slow all around us. And with a last deep hiss, The bus comes to a stop. With steady steps, I walk the length of the vehicle and pass by the driver. It's him. Knuckles repaired, but it's the same driver all right. He doesn't turn to look at me as I pass him by. And hell, why would he? The door opens. I try to think of something to say, some fitting final words, but nothing comes to mind. So I simply step silently down onto the cool pavement below. A second glance up to the sky reveals a gentle cascade of full rolling clouds, and the first drip of rain falls fast from above, landing with a splash on the pavement by my feet. It's quite a long way back, but still, I think it's best if I walk. My mum's place is the closest, so that's where I decide to go. That's also where Ryan should be. It's weird feeling moisture in the air, to look around and see something other than black sands and twisted metal. My legs ache like they've never ached before, but still I trudge on, ever onwards, drawing steadily closer and closer to the house. I have no keys for the place on my person, and the door is locked, so when I reach it, I bring my hand up to the doorbell and press, waiting in the rain. The tree beside the window rustles softly in the breeze, picture of shimmering green. I can hear footsteps and my heart rate increases. The lock clicks. The door opens, and my heart fills with pure liquid relief. Ryan, the young, barely teenage Ryan, just as I left him, stands gawping at me. "Yaz?" he exclaims, looking me up and down. He is fantastically fresh-faced. "What the fuck?" But I don't let him finish his sentence. I just draw him into a hug. Perhaps he can feel the emotional weight behind it, because he hushes at once. "I'm sorry for the way I spoke to you last week," he says quietly after a beat. "Last week?" "Me too," I reply into his shoulder. "Me too. My story is not quite done yet, reader. There's a little bit left to tell before the end. To answer some preemptive questions, I have hidden my injuries from my parents. I have sworn right to secrecy for now, but the pressure is mounting. It's been about a week, and I'll have to tell him eventually. He wants answers. I'll have to tell him something. I think he suspects, but if I tell him the outright truth, then he'll have to live with the guilt of what he has done, and I don't think that telling him about an alternative version of his future self, one which may well lie dead on the road of another world, is such a good idea. Am I doing exactly what Leah did, withholding the truth to protect his mental well-being and to keep from overwhelming him? Or is it for more selfish reasons? I will have to tell him about Christy though, one day. She is still out there, somewhere, this woman to whom he built a shrine in the desert. She is still out there, and she is alive. Perhaps they may even end up finding each other again, and this time there'll be no trip to the Yomi in pursuit of myself. Maybe they'll get to spend a little longer in each other's lives. I kept the magnet blade. I smile as I feel its comforting weight in my satchel. The bag swings gently by my side as I walk the length of a long, familiar street on my way back home for the evening. I walk a lot more these days, and I am happier too. Something clicked back there in the desert, on the bus with Leah. I can fix myself. I have realised I can still make friends. I surprise myself with every passing day at the depth of my newfound self-belief, my courage, my confidence. My social circle is at long last beginning to widen. I can feel it. The seeds have been planted. I don't know what will become of Leah. My smile falters a little. I found myself thinking about the girl a great deal. But if she is truly my parallel, then who knows? Time works differently over there. Maybe she's already taken the leap and is drawn from a source of newfound courage like me. Maybe she has already begun some determined attempt, begun the long process of healing her world, to returning it to the glory of New Eden. I allow a slow sigh as I raise my head to look down the street, and I come to a stop. The bus waits by the side of the road at the far end. It's the same one. I'd recognise it anywhere. There's the driver, the same one, or an exact copy at least. And there's a passenger on the bus. I can see them through the window. I break into a run, shooting down the street as I dodge past benches and lampposts. I leap the curb and round the front of the bus, jumping up the little stairs until I am standing in the vehicle's body, panting, staring down the aisle to warn its inhabitant and encourage them away from this terrible vessel. And what do you know? Of all people, it's Courtney. We stare at each other as Drizzle taps the windows. She has lost some of her power over me this last week. The dynamic between us has changed and she has sensed it. She's still a major bitch though. I gather myself. Courtney, I begin carefully, you need to get off this bus. She says nothing and just keeps looking at me with an expression of mixed scorn and confusion. Seriously, please, just do yourself a favour and step off. I don't know where you're going, but I can promise you, the journey will not be worth it. You are in danger. Just come with me, just walk, or take a cab, or hell, take another bus. Just please, leave this one behind. There's another pause as I await her response. You're a fucking freak, Yaz. You know that. Her words are a surprise. Once they would have cut through me like ice, ruined me for the remainder of the week, hell, for the month. But now they do nothing. She has no power over me. I think perhaps she can sense this, perhaps by the way of my body language. I do not flinch or cower away or force a submissive laugh. I only look down at her with pity. Courtney squirms with discomfort. Seriously, she says, could you just fuck off? I'm not getting off this bus. I could drag her off, I think to myself. After everything I've been through, I'd be strong enough, I think. She might not even fight back when she sees how serious I am. What would you do? I wonder. The driver taps the counter beside me and I make my choice. I reach into my satchel, amused somewhat to see Courtney press back up against her seat as I do so. I draw out the magnet blade, still scarred and scratched from its various battles. Its edge catches in the light. I toss it to her and she fumbles it as it lands in her lap. She looks up at me, bewildered. If you see Leah, I say, please tell her I said hello. And without another word, I turn and I exit the bus as the doors hiss closed behind me. Don't forget, if you enjoyed that story, be sure to pop over to the author's Reddit profile and drop them a line or even give them a glowing review. I'm sure they really would appreciate it. The link to their Reddit profile will be below in the description. Don't forget to check out the merch store. The link will be in the description and also in the video thumbnail. And if you'd like an honourable mention, send in a snapshot of yourself with your purchase and I'll feature it in one of the videos. Have you written a creepypasta story you would like me to narrate? Have you had any cryptid sightings, paranormal or supernatural encounters, or even had a creepy or terrifying situation you would like to share? Well, I now have my very own subreddit community where you can submit your stories. The link for that is also in the thumbnail as well as below in the description. You can submit your stories there, or you can send them to cryptidsroost@gmail.com. If you wish to remain anonymous, that's fine with me. Now I also have a Facebook group, Twitter, Reddit and Discord. And if you'd like to support the channel and help make it grow, my PayPal is paypal.me/cryptidsroost. If you wish to remain anonymous, that's fine with me. Now I also have a Facebook group, Twitter, Reddit and Discord. And if you would like to support the channel and help make it grow, my PayPal is paypal.me/cryptidsroost. And any and all donations would be gratefully received. Again, that will also be below. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not.